Okay, I'm here working on the racing lawnmower, and I have it up on a couple blocks so I can work on it a little bit easier, but I didn't really need it to be on top of the stands. It's nice to be able to stand and work on it, but they're kind of a pain, and since I don't necessarily need them, I just put it up on some blocks. But anyways, I did some clearancing on the steering, so I have the same amount of throw to the left and to the right, as much as I can get out of it. I'm going to have to make a brace on my steering mount for the shaft that pushes forward and backwards. It tweaks the side of the frame a bit, so I'll have to make a brace so we can grab more meat on the side of the frame and not tweak as much. But right now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is pull out my brake rotor and caliper and get down in there and find a way to mount it so it can grab onto that axle and stop those wheels. Okay, these are my brake components. I have a disc, and then this is a mechanical caliper. Again, just like everything else on the rear end, aside from the actual lawnmower transmission, the Peerless 700, it's all go-kart parts. I purchased these from bmicarts.com. You can order them from other go-kart places like Go Power Sports. I wouldn't recommend Go Power Sports though. I don't really like them as much. BMI Carts has worked out much better for me. But you can technically order all of these from any sort of go-kart supplier. The way that this caliper works is there's a lever here that has sort of a ramp machined into it, and it pushes on a rod that basically rides on the ramp. So when you pull, the way I have it set up, when you pull on the lever, it moves up, or it moves the caliper closed. It has an adjustment, so if you have something thicker as a disc or something thinner as a disc, you can turn this in and out, and you can, adjust to either pad wear life or disc thickness. Right now I have it set up roughly for this. It's all mocked up though. I mean, this is pretty loose right now. I have to take it apart so I can switch the lever. If you do buy one of these mechanical calipers, it's possible to switch the lever to either side depending on how your chassis is set up, so that when you pull this way, you're braking, or you can have it so it's down and you could be pushing or pulling that way so it'll be braking. You just have to take the whole thing apart, punch out this rod and move it to the other hole. It is a press fit, but it's not very tight. I was able to get it with a small hammer and a punch. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and take these parts over to the racing lawnmower itself and get them test fit, because I'm going to have to make a bracket to mount my caliper to the chassis so it can brake and Okay, you are looking down from the top of the lawnmower. Normally the fenders and whatnot would be up here, but my brake mounting is actually going to be easier than I thought. There was a hole on the side of the lawnmower chassis already that I was able to line up with the caliper itself, and then I'll just have to drill one more hole up over here so then I can get the other bolt through, and it'll just be mounted to the side of the chassis, no harm, no foul. There's plenty of clearance for when I have a pulley back here. There's plenty of available space for the mounting bolts for the bearing plate for the rear end. Everything can spin freely in there. This is actually pretty easy mounting location. That does mean, however, I have to flip the lever around for the brake, because now it's working backwards again. But, when it's all said and done, flipping that back around is a lot easier than having to make some sort of fancy bracket. I also did attempt to test fit my sprocket, which is right here, but it is too big for the available space that I have in this area, but on the other side. Let me flip you around for a second. You're pretty much looking at the same view, just from further away and looking the other direction. Like I said, this is, or I should say, I don't have enough room for this sprocket. This is a 45 tooth 40 or 45 tooth sprocket. But the problem is it hits the back of the chassis. It doesn't quite go on there. And this is where the output sprocket is on the Peerless 700, so that's where it has to go. But even if I moved this sprocket to this side and flipped the brake from over there to over here, it still ends up hitting the back of the chassis. So I'll have to cut some sort of slot so the sprocket will fit, and then I'll either have to leave it open, or you know, my better option is to just make a little plate back there to cover the hole that I opened up, and, you know, make a bump out so the sprocket is still protected and whatnot. But progress is being made. You know, I'm fabricating parts and pieces that aren't meant to go together, so it can be slow going, but I'm making progress. It's not too bad. I have made a notch for the sprocket to stick through the back of the chassis. The pulley is just kind of in there loosely right now. It's not exactly lined up, but I checked clearance with the chain. There's plenty of clearance on both sides to fit the chain up and around and whatnot, all the way that I have to. Like I had said, pointed out before, the brake is in there just loose, so I can, you know, mock it up. But what I am going to do now is find a way to get a linkage from here. I did switch this around, so now when it gets pulled forwards, it's braking. So I can run a cable up over here to this side. Normally from the factory on this particular lawnmower, the clutch and the brake are on your left foot. I'm going to separate the clutch and the brake, so the left pedal is going to be just the clutch, and then the brake will be on this side, kind of like a normal car, I guess. The clutch is to the left of the brake. The only difference is there won't be a gas pedal on this side. It will just be a brake. Then your left foot is clutch, and then your hand is going to actually have a hand actuated throttle. I do have a bike brake that I will mount to the steering wheel, or I could switch to handlebars and mount the throttle there, and then your feet will take care of the clutching and braking. Anyways, that's a lot of talking. I'm just going to find something to make a brake pedal out of after I put the body panels back on. So this is going to be my brake lever. This handle here was, I believe, the part of the original gear shifter, or gear selector, I should say, for the lawn tractor. It came out over here and was used to select gears. It had some bends in it, and part of it's still over on the bench. So I had lobbed it off here. So this is about 9 inches in length. It had a jog over here, kind of like that. So I sort of bent it straight, chopped the very tip of it off, and then found a really big bolt in a different garage that's down here, and just welded it to the end so that and the bolt's long enough so that, you know, somebody, a normal sized foot, you know, can get on there and push. So what I'm going to have to do when I start working on the brakes again is cut out a little access panel hole so that this can get slipped down in there, and then have, you know, about an inch or inch and a half as a pivot point down there, so that I can route a cable from there all the way back to here that pulls on that brake lever and makes it so this tractor stops. But I need some cable, so I'll have to order some cable so I can get that routed. So for now, the brake's kind of on hold. What I'm going to do now, before I take off for the day, is trim my fender, or trim the hood, not the fender. Okay, looking at the hood with, or looking at the tractor with the hood down, I'm going to have to cut basically along this line so that I can allow for the full throw of the steering. When you try and go the entire length. Hopefully you can see that, but it hits the fender there. And the same thing happens on the other side. So, the front, believe it or not, the front doesn't actually hit because it sort of concaves in a little bit. But my plan is to essentially cut along this line and then go down like this to sort of make it as good as possible, and then allow plenty of clearance to turn the wheel back and forth. There's no suspension in the front, so there's no extra clearance needed for the wheel to go up and down. It just needs to be able to pivot back and forth. So I'm just going to take care of that right quick and see where I'm at. Alright, so there's the hood clearanced or trimmed back on the tractor. Yes, I did freehand that line. I just grabbed the die grinder and had at it. But that's what it looks like back on the tractor. Same thing, just the other side. Here it is from the front. Came up pretty good, you know, for freehanding a fender trimming. But yeah, we'll continue again another day.